So today I wanted to touch a little bit on self-forgiveness because it is that's a challenging one. And it seems like it's quite easy and often not. Often we have a hard time forgiving other people. Um, and it seems like if we have a hard time forgiving other people, then we have an even harder time forgiving ourselves. Or sometimes it feels quite easy to forgive somebody else. And yet, when we turn it in on us, it's something that feels unforgivable. And I had one of my meditation teachers. We were doing some therapy. I was doing some therapy with him, and what he wanted me to do was to sit for 15 minutes each day and just to keep saying, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, to myself. So I played around with it a little bit because I was saying, I forgive you, and I wasn't really catching it. And then I was saying, I forgive you, Cole. I forgive myself. I forgive you. So it's kind of interesting the way that you use the semantics. I forgive you. I forgive myself. I forgive Cole. Like how you say it is a little bit different. And then all of a sudden I just cracked. I just cracked because it's something that often what we need to hear so much can never come from somebody else. Like we will never be able to be told from somebody else, the person who maybe that we've hurt, how much they forgive us until we actually forgive ourselves. Like my personal tiny story with this is something that I have a really a big wound with my mother, who we have a wonderful relationship now, but yet I still can't forgive myself for the pain that I put her through. So that is, she can forgive me over and over and over and over. Like it's in her eyes, it's been forgiven, but the weight that I put myself underneath is extraordinary. And we all have this in different ways. And so just kind of inviting us to touch into one of these scenarios, to something that's one of these wounds that is alive for us, something that's really hard and challenging for us to be able to let go of. And we can give ourselves that forgiveness, and only we can really give it. This is another place that we can practice the metta as well, is having compassion for ourselves. They go together, the forgiveness and the compassion, because we can't forgive without compassion. Like, do we want ourselves to be free? Forgiveness, if we're not forgiving ourselves, then we're definitely not free. That's a very heavy weight. So they all blend together. But that was just kind of on my mind this week. So let's go ahead and close our eyes down, and we'll come into our bodies. So begin to take some deeper inhales and some even bigger exhales. We'll focus on the exhale. So that's really alive, because we want this feeling of, forgiveness is also this feeling of release. So as if we were letting go a little bit more with each exhale. And find a little bit of space in the body. And an easy way to do that is to press down through the sit bones. So anything that's touching the seat or the floor. And when you press down, you can kind of see how that lifts the spine up. So that downward energy creates upward energy, and you find a little bit more space between the ribs and the hips. Maybe a little bit more space between the shoulders and the ears. And while we're doing a reflection here, maybe you don't want to go to the big one yet. Maybe you want to go to something that's, maybe you want to go to something that is more manageable, something that feels more workable right now. Anything that you'd like to bring to mind, and you can probably pretty quickly feel the stickiness of it. And something that we do it from a really young age, and we continue it on, is that often when things happen, we go from, I've done something like I've done something bad or I've made a bad decision. You know, we all do these things. We misstep all the time. We just do it as humans. But we take this thing as being like, I've done something bad, and we flip it to that I am bad. This is one of my old stories, and I know that a lot of people carry this story as well. It may be relevant to you or may not, that I'm bad. And somewhere along the line, not being able to digest experiences and traumas, we go from I've made some bad decisions to I am bad. And that's where the separation is. And that is where there's so much space for the metta and the compassion and the forgiveness. So finding one of these areas, finding one of these spaces. Maybe you can feel it somewhere in the body, or maybe you can visualize it. So some of us are more feeling, it's a felt sense. You can feel, and then maybe see where you feel that in the body, that weight in the body. Or maybe you're seeing it. Maybe it has a color. Maybe there's like a movement to it, like a pulsation, and this heaviness and this thickness. We're just identifying it. And then I want you to begin to literally just say, I forgive you. I mean, like I mentioned, you can play around with how that you want to say it and see what resonates. I forgive you. I forgive myself. You're forgiven. See what resonates with you. And as my teacher told me, you just repeat it. And for a bit, you might not feel anything. We've built up really strong walls around this, and that story is very strong. And then eventually there'll be a little crack. And maybe it's today, maybe it's in a year. But remembering how long the stories take to get there, how long the wounds have been scabbing over, that it takes often the same amount of time for them to disintegrate and then to loosen. But just coming back, repeating this to yourself, I forgive you. Notice if you're going into story about what happened, what didn't happen, what the responses were, and keep coming back to just, I forgive you. Because that doesn't matter anymore. The replays and the ruminations aren't helpful. Come back to the way that it feels in the body, or maybe the color. Come back to the exhale. Notice if your shoulders have tightened up close to your ears, and release them down. Maybe wiggle your jaw in case you've been clenching your jaw. And a few more rounds of breath here. Really let this sink in. Just building a new pattern, a new frequency and vibration in the body. And I want to read this quote. You can go ahead and keep your eyes closed. I think this is so beautiful. Really speaking to that story that that we're bad, or that we have these demons and there's something inherently wrong. It says, perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. And this really speaks to all the places of fear and all the places of greed and of anger and the things that we label bad. Underneath all of that is it something, a part of us that's helpless, that really wants love and acts in a different way. It comes out in a different way, but underneath. And that really softens that image and softens that story when we think of it that way. And a couple more rounds of breath. And slowly, when you're ready, you can begin to open your eyes and let the light in. How was that?
For me, that was very heavy.
Yeah.
I didn't, something so simple, I didn't realize something so simple could be so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I still have a lot of work to do. So.
I have a lot of work to do there too. This is probably one of my biggest areas. These stories that we carry they're so intertwined. They're like woven into our skin. It's really heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I need to start doing this more, but my meditation teacher said that was telling me that I should do this at least 3-4 times a week. Just use like 15 minutes, just repeat that mantra, or however you want to say it. I forgive you, or you are forgiven, however you want to say it, and just repeat it over and over and over. And he was like, you will crack open.
Yeah.
So
I can see how that would happen.
Yeah. So maybe try that as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
So important. Yeah. Anyone else have anything come up?
It was good. I don't think I've ever said it to myself like that, because I was muted, but I was saying my name, said I was forgiven, and used my name and saying it over and over. And so, yes, but I can see how that would definitely work, and not to play the stories, but to get into just the forgiving part,
Yeah.
Not rewinding the tapes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, big stuff.
Well, yeah, this one is I'm gonna watch it again. So
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, well, you all have a beautiful day. Stay safe over there.
Yes, you too. Have a good rest of your day, and we will see you next week.
All right, sounds good. Bye, y'all.
All right, bye.